Do you remember back in the day, back in my day, when we got to vote for the next map we played in Call of Duty? Now, we don't have as much control over the maps we play now as we used to, but COD has always given us a pretty varied selection of multiplayer maps, and while the vast majority of them are playable, some are unbearable. In fact, there's a decent number of maps from COD history that a sizable portion of the community absolutely refused to play. They basically boycotted them. What is up, everybody? Chaos here. Today, we're going to be looking at 10 maps that you always backed out of, and we'll see just how many of you actually remember playing a complete 6v6 match on any of these maps. Let me know which of these you thought were the most effective for quitting on. Drop a like, and your daily reminder, there is another Chaos Call of Duty channel. That's right, link is at the top of the description. Make sure you get over there and subscribe for daily COD content. That's right, news, updates, leaks, rumors, everything covered in the Call of Duty community on the daily basis. This channel is still going to be home to the COD history series and the ranking series, so don't worry. Make sure you guys sub. Let me know if you did. Now, at number 10, let's start off with Cartel in Black Ops Cold War. Now, the maps in Cold War, I thought were generally pretty good. But if there was one that had a bad rep from the start, I think it would be Cartel. I guess there was one other map that people didn't like from day one, but we'll talk about that one in a little while. Cartel was one of the beta maps. Had to be pretty heavily adjusted for the full release due to the community's hatred of it. And the hatred, I think it was justified. The OG version of Cartel featured this really thick foliage in the dead center of the map. It made the most important part of the map very frustrating to navigate. When the game launched, Treyarch cut most of the plants. They sent a lawn crew out there to cut it down to make visibility a little bit better, but it also exposed other problems with the map's layout. Something about the map just didn't vibe with the community, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that it can't decide if it's a long-range map or a close-range map. That plus the sporadic spawns made it a frustrating experience, and one that a lot of Cold War players opted to just back out of instead of playing through. At number 9, Wasteland. Modern Warfare 2 2009. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say Wasteland? I think the center bunker, I think nukes, and I think the javelin off spawn. This map may be a piece of COD history, but you know you backed out of it. You know you did. In fact, I'm willing to bet some of you have quit more matches on Wasteland than you've actually finished. Anyway, Wasteland was one of the biggest maps in Modern Warfare 2. It was known for its wide open sightlines, lack of aerial cover. This meant every single match here played out the exact same. Everybody would go for long-range picks off the spawn. Both teams would rush the middle of the map. They would fight. Somebody would start getting their kill streaks. Then half the lobby leaves because it's game over. The lack of cover meant whoever had air control superiority first was going to absolutely snowball the other team in a matter of minutes, often ending in a tactical nuke. It gave birth to tons of iconic COD moments and memories, but it's laughably unbalanced, and it was frequently backed out of by huge chunks of the lobby. Don't lie, you know you did. At number 8. Miami. Black Ops Cold War. Now, Cold War was certainly the most fun I've had with a COD game in the last few years, so I don't want to keep picking on it, but Miami was just too bad to leave off the list. It's one of the first maps we ever saw. It's one of the first maps we ever played on. It did a fantastic job of capturing the game setting and vibe. It was beautiful. It was just not fun to play on. Treyarch normally designs their maps in a much more straightforward way than Infinity Ward, but Miami, it felt like they were kind of trying to mimic the map design philosophy of Modern Warfare 2019, and I just don't think it worked. Aside from all the extremely dark corners, it was a classic example of a map that punished you for doing anything but flanking around the sidelines. The entire middle lane was completely exposed from multiple directions, meaning it was basically off limits, and since those side lanes were way easier to lock down, matches here were almost always a blowout. The Modern Warfare design philosophy just did not work in a game like Black Ops Cold War, and despite having an awesome vibe, I bet it's one of the most quitted maps in the game. At number 7, Euphrates Bridge in Modern Warfare. I've said once, or twice, that this map was actually pretty fun if you were up in the middle bridge and sniping down at everybody else. However, if you were doing literally anything else on the map, it was a terrible experience. It was one of the maps designed for 10v10, but strangely enough, it was always present in the 6v6 rotation for certain game modes, and I don't know why. But you'd be forgiven for thinking it was always a 10v10 map, because frankly, there were always people backing out of this map. So even your 10v10 matches were going to be 6v6. It was a perfect example of why Modern Warfare spawn system was a problem. Despite being a huge map with lots of open space, there were entire corners of the map that were literally impossible to spawn into, meaning giant chunks of the map were just never used in combat, and a lot of players forget they were even there. So why didn't Infinity Ward cut down the size of the map if they weren't going to use all of it? I don't know. I really don't. Like I said, if you were up on the bridge, you were having fun. Otherwise, you were backing out. And speaking of 10v10 maps, We segue into number 6, Grozna Raid, Modern Warfare. I've personally complained about the map many, many times. I'm going to do it one more time at least. This was one of the first maps we played Modern Warfare, thanks to its inclusion in the betas. It was a way to show off the new 10v10 multiplayer playlist. Now, I respect IW for trying to branch out, create new experiences within the Modern Warfare multiplayer experience. But Grozna, it was a really, 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 really bad way to introduce us to 10v10. Urban map, far too cluttered, doors, corners, dark windows, led to absolutely nobody moving ever. You didn't come out in the street ever. This map is what gave birth to that Modern Warfare meme of the guy trying to cross the street, and it appeared countless Claymore rage montages because that's what people did. But you know what's worse than that? The gigantic camp fest of a map was also in 6v6. I have no idea why, but it was there. It was awful. I don't think anybody ever got through a full match. There was always people backing out. Now we arrive at the top 5. Santa sent border crossing in Modern Warfare 2. This map has basically already become a meme in the COD community. It has. Now it looks interesting. It's an interesting idea for a map layout. Border crossing is not a fun map to play on because the hectic layout and sporadic cover pieces, it's almost impossible to tell where people have been or where they're coming. Moving around at all times seems to be completely discouraged here, and all of that is just made worse by some of Modern Warfare 2's gameplay flaws like the super loud footsteps, lack of true dead silence abilities. Border Crossing's easily the most hated map in the game, and unless IW is going to give it a massive overhaul in the future, maybe disable it. I mean, people are already leaving Modern Warfare 2 pretty quickly in favor of Warzone, so you might as well just try to make the experience as good as possible for the remaining multiplayer fans. And frankly, I think the experience would be better with one less map. If Border Crossing wasn't in the rotation, I think people would be okay. At number 4, Subbase Vanguard. Now, at first, I kind of like the map. It reminded me of all the fun times I had on Subbase back in the original Modern Warfare 2. But, I mean, the more I played on it, the more I realized it was the exact opposite of Subbase. It was unbalanced, it wasn't fun, it was easily one of the most hated maps in Vanguard. It was heavily criticized for the bizarre game flow and the absolutely abusable sightlines. The spawns here were pretty crappy for almost every game mode. The whole map somehow feels both claustrophobic and way too open at the same time. I don't know how that's possible, but it did. Now, Vanguard had a nice selection of maps at launch, but Subbase very quickly got on the community's bad side and for good reason. But not quite as quick as, segue, Piccadilly. At number 3, Piccadilly Modern Warfare. Right out of the gate, map was seen as one of the worst in COD history. Now, we've had a few years to let it marinate. I think those accusations hold true. It's a work of art. It is stunning. It is beautiful, but it is a bad map design. Yes, it looks amazing. But if you're looking for a fair and balanced first-person shooter experience, this is not it. It was 100% designed to be camped on, meaning once the match starts, it's a race to the camping spots, and if you don't get one, you're going to spend the rest of the match trying to steal one from somebody. The entire center section of the map is completely exposed from a million different directions, meaning moving around is a liability. The only way to survive on Piccadilly is to be as low profile as possible until you manage to steal a camping spot from somebody else, at which point you sit perfectly still and you continuously shoot at the people in the same 2 directions and set your claymores. It was awful. And even if Infinity Ward devs are refusing to play it on streams, I mean, you already know. At number 2, Stonehaven Ghosts. Stonehaven is one of those maps that everybody hated, but everybody kind of remembers fondly. It wasn't a great map for 6v6, obviously. It was huge. It's probably the slowest map in COD history, but people seem to at least have fond memories of playing Search and Destroy, maybe Search and Rescue here. In non-respawn game modes with a group of buddies, it had its own unique energy to it. I'm going to take that into account today. On the other hand, it was also one of the most hated maps in COD Ghosts, and that was saying something. In 6v6 respawn, which is what the vast majority of the community is playing, it wasn't any good. It annihilated any and all game flow that could possibly be generated. You spent so much time just running around looking for enemies, only to get killed by someone camping the castle, and then you spawn out a mile away, and you run in to do it all over again. It wasn't a good map for respawn 6v6 modes, and for that, it gets the number 2 spot today. Ghost had some pretty dookie maps, let's be real. But Stonehaven was still by far the most frequently rage quitted on, and that's saying something. But at number 1, you already know, you're going to be proud of me, Gustav Cannon. COD World War II, perhaps the most made map of all time. I don't know, you let me know. It's a mess. I mean, I could probably make an entire list video titled Top 10 Things That Break Gustav Cannon, or ranking all the worst things about Gustav Cannon. Call of Duty World War II didn't exactly have the best map design, but there were some decent standouts. London Docks, Flak Tower, but then on the other side of that coin, there was Gustav Cannon. It was a huge map. Huge giant piece of high ground in the dead center, meaning it was basically the opposite of Wasteland from Modern Warfare 2, which we talked about earlier. Instead of the middle of the map being the only place for cover, The middle of the map is now the only piece of high ground on the map, meaning whoever controlled it could literally spawn trap the entire team by themselves. It was a mess. It was one of the biggest memes in COD history. Heck, even Sledgehammer was poking fun at their failure on Twitter. So I respect that. Sometimes you don't know how bad your mistake is until it's right in front of you. Gustav is easily the most hated map in COD history, and I think for a solid portion of the COD World War II player base, it was an insta-quit. Let me know a map that didn't make it, that should have made it. I hope to see you guys on the new Chaos Call of Duty channel, and I'll see you soon.